Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Los. This video is going to give you a few pointers on producing graphs with loggerpro. Basically this is going to cover the basics of just getting your graph sort of looking like it should, getting it in shape, and doing all that kind of stuff. It does not cover the actual use of loggerpro devices themselves. So this is what the loggerpro software looks like. If you used a loggerpro device to collect your data, it's going to have the data imported in here already. Or you could just type it in yourself, which is what I did, or you could copy paste it from some other place, whatever. But it's pretty easy just to get the data in there, and then loggerpro will start to make a graph for you. So you can see my graph is looking kind of weird here, and there's lots of things I need to do to make this better. So where I probably want to start is graph options, and so I can see a bunch of different stuff here. And many of these things are things that we might want to use. Usually we probably don't want to connect points. We probably do want to have error bars. We usually want to have extra tick lines or extra grid lines. So I'm actually going to make these the major tick lines are like the big grid lines. Instead of saying no line, I'm going to do that solid but leave it at gray. It's up to you to set it how you'd like. Of course, my graph needs a title. So this one I'm going to say, and this is just made up data, but milliliters of CO2 produced per gram of calcium carbonate. So that's going to put the title to the top of my graph. For now, I'm probably done with this part. So all right, that's shaping things up a little bit. At least we got a title, we got a few more grid lines. You know, if you'd prefer to have these black, that's fine. Go back to graph options. Axes options. This is where we can set the scaling. So that's one of the things we can do. We can actually put a title on the y-axis here. You can't put a title on the x-axis here for some reason, but I'll show you where that's done. So as far as scaling goes, generally speaking, unless you want to do some extrapolation, you want to set your graph's range to match the range in the data pretty closely. You do want to start at 0 usually. And so this y-axis is fine. If I was going to do some extrapolation, I could make this larger, but I think I'm just going to leave the scale. I am always going to start at 0. And the top looks good. What's making this graph look really weird though is the scaling on my x-axis. It's got it going all the way up to 10 when my values only go up to 0.5. So again, I'm going to leave it starting at 0, but let's maybe make it go just a little bit past, and we'll go 0.6. And okay, so then our graph is looking a little better already. So another thing I want to do is let's kind of tweak some of the things a little bit. So here I'm just right-clicking, column options, dataset X. Here's where you can actually type in a title for the x-axis. I'm not sure why it doesn't let you do it on there. The short name, I don't know that matters. I think that changes the. I think that changes what it says up here. I wouldn't worry about putting those units. It's numeric data. So this is defining, and then we're going to do some options. So we're going to click there. Now here, display every 1 point. If you had a bunch of data, like you'd collected from from loggerpro, you might have thousands of data points, and you could actually consider not displaying every point. But here we're going to display every point. Displayed precision. All right. Well, what I'm probably going to want to do is I'm probably going to use decimal places, and maybe my measuring device. It's like one of our electric balances or whatever. So the x-axis, I'm going to have that displayed at 2 decimal places, so it matches what the precision of our measuring device that we used. Also, I'm going to switch up the style of the points. I like to use a filled circle and a tiny one, just a tiny little point there. I think that looks a little better. Right now it has these open red circles. we're going to put error bars on there, and you could choose to set it as a percentage or a fixed value. It kind of depends, but if it's our electric balances like we used in class, the uncertainty in those electric balances is 0.01. So now I'm applying a 0.01 uncertainty to all of those, and that's going to set up my x-axis. So now I have little error bars. Sorry, it didn't change my data points, but I think it'll do that when I change these Y options. Just going to do a filled circle. We're going to do tiny. Let's make it black. Especially when you print it in black and white, the red ones don't show up. We're going to display every 1 point. Let's do decimal places. Maybe this is a graduated cylinder that should only be read to the 1 spot, so I'm not going to put any decimal places there. Let's do error bar calculations. Maybe the uncertainty on the graduated cylinder is, let's say it's 2 milliliters. So that's going to be my plus or minus there. And so now I have my graph, and everything is starting to come into place here. I got titles, I got good grid lines, I got uncertainties, labels, all that good stuff. The next thing we should probably start to think about is trend lines and seeing if there's a good trend line on here. Oh, I'm just realizing my x-axis is labeled. It might be cut off on your screen though. So trend lines, we've talked about how one thing you might want to consider, or you do want to consider with the trend line, is whether you should force the origin, whether 0, 0 should be a point on your graph. In this case, it should, because if we had 0 grams of calcium carbonate, if we're doing a reaction, let's say, then we would get no CO2. So one way to do that is we could just put a 0, 0 in here. We could put a 0, 0 as a data point, like that. And so that'll be on there. It changed up our scaling a little bit, which I could adjust back if I wanted to, but it's okay. I don't think I'm going to bother with it for now. And then we're going to look at some trend line options. And oh, I just realized it's cut off on your screen, but directly above up here at the top, there's a bunch of little lines, and one of them says linear fit. And if I click that linear fit button, then it does draw in a linear best fit line for me. It gives me the general equation. It gives me the slope. It gives me the y-intercept. It gives me the correlation. It gives me the RMSE. Remember, the closer the correlation, the closer this will be to 1. The closer the correlation, the closer this will be to 0. And looking at my line, it looks not bad. It's passing through most of the points, or in some of the cases, it's at least passing through the error bars. Now, you could try some other fits. So, like directly above right here, there's a button that says curve fit, and I click that. And you could try other possible ways to relate these variables. So, for instance, I could click here. I think that's the one it already has, and does try fit, and it can show me kind of what it looks like, and can show me the correlation. It can show me the RMSE. So, if you wanted to, you could try to find some fits that might be better. Like, for instance, this one, at least in terms of the correlation and the RMSE, is giving me better numbers. This is closer to 0. So we could try some different fits. Now you got to be careful, because it doesn't necessarily mean that your equation is true or one that works because it happens to have the lowest RSME, or the closest correlation to 1. There's other factors to consider here. You know, you can try some, there's all kinds of them. So this one, obviously, that doesn't fit my data very well at all. I'm just going to go back, in this case, actually, just to the linear fit. If all else fails, that's probably a good reason to, using a linear fit is probably just the best default option if you're not sure. So I closed out of that. I can see that it accidentally has made 2 copies of the same line here. So I can go ahead and just delete one of these by clicking this little X. That'll delete that line. You can move this around, so if you want to, for aesthetic purposes or whatever, you want this little box somewhere else on your graph, you can do that. So that is the very basics of graph generation. There's a bunch of other stuff that this can do. For instance, you can't see it, but right above here is the Analyze menu. If we click on Examine, we can actually move around through different points here, or in the same menu, Analyze, Interpolate. Notice that little dot that's following along this line. So I can use my trend line to interpolate to predict at different points, if I had this many grams of calcium carbonate, how much CO2 would I get? So notice it's showing me the y-axis values at different grams of calcium carbonate. And like I said, there's a bunch of other stuff you could do, but that's the basics. When you actually want to import this or put it into some other document, it's pretty easy. You can just right-click on this, copy it. You can paste it into anything, into Word, into Google Docs, or whatever. So if you want to put it in a lab report, that's the way to do it. But thanks for watching, folks, and we'll see you next time.